Good morning, everybody. I will call this meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee to order. Will the Secretary please take the roll?
Senator Flores? Senator Orenshaw?
Here.
Senator Lang? Senator Wynn? Senator Hansen? Senator Krasner? Senator Ellison? Chair Scheibel.
And I am here. Please also mark Senator Wynn present. We have everybody with us this morning, at least at the moment. I know that we have presenters here who have to get to Ways and Means, and so we are going to do a very quick work session. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bills on work session today. I'm going to ask the committee if they need Mr. McDonald to go through the work session document on any of these bills. Anybody need a review of the work session document? All right, Senator Hansen has a question. Go ahead.
Just on the very last one, 518. Did we actually hear that? It said public, 518, when I pulled up, I couldn't remember the hearing, and it's a Health and Human Services bill. Is that supposed to be on our docket today?
Thank you for the question, Senator Hansen. I think, wasn't this the bill that Assemblymember Anderson presented to us?
Oh, just recently? I'm trying to place the bill when I saw that where it came. Other than that, that's the only one I would want.
I'll hand it over
just to make sure it's in the right committee.
Absolutely. I'll hand it over to Mr. McDonald.
Okay.
Assembly Bill 518 revises provisions related to the interstate placement of children. This was sponsored by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services and heard in this committee on April 24th. This was presented in our committee by Assemblywoman Golding, if you'll recall. The bill adopts and enters into a revised version of the Interstate Compact on the placement of children. The revisions make certain administrative changes requiring each participating state to establish a central state compact office with an executive head appointed by the governor, and there are no amendments on this bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That answers my question, and all the rest of them I'm fine with, so if you don't want him to go through them, I'm fine with that as well.
Maybe if you could just briefly go through the bills on the list, Mr. McDonald, but I don't think we need to read the full, descriptions. Thank you.
The first bill is Assembly Bill 17. This was sponsored by this committee on behalf of the State Controller and heard on April 23rd. It requires that writs of garnishment may be served upon the Division of Human Resource Management instead of the State Controller. Next is AB 18. This revises provisions related to electronic filing of certain documents and was sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Nevada Supreme Court. It requires that certain documents filed electronically contain the electronic signature of the person who is filing the document as set forth in the Nevada Electronic Filing and Conversion Rules. The next bill is Assembly Bill 30. This was sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, and it authorizes the administrator of the division to request and access certain medical and mental health records from local detention facilities for detained or imprisoned defendants who are committed to the administrator's custody for evaluation and treatment. The next bill is Assembly Bill 97. This was sponsored on behalf of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on the Judiciary and heard April 23rd. It requires each agency of criminal justice and any other agency dealing with crime to submit the information required by the Central Repository for Nevada Records of Criminal History using the National Incident-Based Reporting System. And none of these bills have amendments so far. Assembly Bill 150. This was sponsored by Assemblymember Ohrenlichter and heard on April 29th. It extends existing prohibitions against directly or indirectly threatening or intimidating certain public officials to include any judicial personnel of an Indian tribe. Again, no amendments. AB 153, sponsored by Assemblymember Miller, heard April 28th, requires programming staff within the Department of Corrections to provide certain information to inmates relating to financial planning and financial aid. Again, no amendments. AB 329, this was sponsored by Assemblymember Roth, heard April 28th. It revises provisions applying for payment from the Fund for the Compensation of Victims of Crime. Again, no amendments proposed for this bill. And then the final bill I'm going to review here is Assembly Bill 387. This was sponsored by the Assembly Committee on the Judiciary, and it was presented by Assemblymember Natha, if I recall. This bill revises many, many provisions related to the guardianship of minors. And we have a long summary that you can please read if you feel you need a refresher. We do have one amendment for this bill, and it was discussed during the hearing presented by Jonathan Norman, and the amendment specifies that a guardian ad litem or an advocate may be appointed for good cause, and it also deletes a couple of statutes from the list that were going to be repealed in the bill. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Unless there are questions, I would accept a motion to do pass AB 17, AB 18, AB 30, AB 97, AB 150, AB 153, AB 329, and AB 518.
So moved, Chair.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Senator Orenshaw, a second from Senator Flores. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. By unanimous vote, those aforementioned assembly bills have been voted to pass out of the Senate Committee on Judiciary. I will assign the floor statements to the following volunteers. On AB 17, Senator Ellison. On AB 18, any volunteers? Senator Krasner. On AB 30, any volunteers? Senator Hansen. On AB 97, Senator Wynn. On AB 150, Senator Lang. On AB 153, Vice Chair Flores. On AB 329, Senator Orenshaw. On AB 518, myself. And at this time, I would also accept a motion to amend and do pass AB 387. We have a motion from Senator Lang, a second from Senator Wynn. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. All right, the motion passes unanimously to amend and do pass AB 387. And I will give this floor statement to Senator. He did. He got AB 153. But I agree, he should get another one. Vice Chair Flores. All right, that takes us to the end of our work session. I will close the work session. I will open up the hearing on AB 137.
Thank you, Chair Scheibel, Vice Chair Flores, and members of the esteemed Judiciary Committee. For the record, I'm Assemblymember Slada Torres Fawcett, and I proudly represent Assembly District 3, located in West Las Vegas. And I am presenting AB 137 with my colleague, Assemblymember Hansen. AB 137 modernizes the lien sale notification process for self-storage facilities by eliminating the outdated requirement to publish notices in printed newspapers, and instead allowing notices to be posted on a publicly accessible internet website. This is a common sense update that reflects how people actually receive information today. While modernizing how advertising for the unit is conducted, we made sure to preserve all the consumer protections that were in the NRS originally. We've heard a few concerns from the Assembly hearing, and I wanted to address them directly at the start of this hearing. First, some have asked, what if a person doesn't have internet access? How would they then be notified It's important to note that AB 137 does not eliminate the direct notices required to the occupant. Under existing law, storage operators are already required to notify the tenant multiple times before a lien of sale, including directly to an alternative contact provided by the tenant. The public advertisement is not intended to alert an individual tenant. It's intended to alert potential bidders of the sale opportunity. And even for those without internet at home, public libraries across Nevada offer free access. I would actually argue that internet in today's day and age is more accessible than newspapers. As the youngest member of my body, I can tell you that I don't remember it. I have never had a newspaper delivered to my home, and I generally don't have it available. What I do have is the newspaper app on my phone sometimes. I also read the news on the internet or on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days. And that's, I think, how most people get information. So in many ways, I think that this is just a modernization that is allowing for us to access information and updating outdated statutes that prevented us from accessing information in a way that made sense for us today. Second, a concern was raised about transient workers, such as union journeymen who might move frequently. One of the consumer protections in the law currently is it allows tenants to provide an email address and a secondary contact. Email travels with the tenant, and the alternate contact provides another layer of protection before any sale is conducted. Additionally, those same individuals would have access to internet in whatever part of the world that they might be traveling in today. And I think it's probably a better bet that they have access to internet than they have access to the local newspaper once they have moved out of a certain area. We heard arguments about the importance of NevadaPublicNotice.com. Respectfully, the evidence tells us few people actually read that site. In California, survey data confirmed that newspaper notice websites receive minimal engagement. In fact, I'm not even sure that I existed until I started preparing for this hearing today. AB 137 allows the use of other more functional and accessible online platforms that serve the same purpose, getting the word out. Someone said that this is a small price to pay for additional notice, around $45 per ad, but context matters. Storage operators often recover only 25 or 30 cents on the dollar during a lien sale. If a tenant owes $1,000 and the sale brings in $200, then $80 in newspaper fee adds 40% tax on a loss. That's not a small price, it's punitive. Lastly, there's a suggestion that removing newspapers is like letting the fox watch the hen house, that owners can't be trusted to comply with the law without newspapers acting as some sort of watchdog. That's just simply not accurate. Storage owners have a strong economic incentive to ensure maximum exposure. More views lead to more bids and better sale prices. And newspapers are not investigators. They don't verify the accuracy of timelines of notices. They perform administrative tasks, print what's submitted, sometimes late and sometimes incorrectly. And in rural Nevada, maybe only once a week. AB 137 replaces an inefficient and costly relic of the past with a more effective, more accessible, and more affordable solution. At this time, I'd like to pass the presentation over to my co-sponsor, Assemblymember Hansen.
Thank you, Chair Scheibel and Vice Chair Flores and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I'm honored to be here today to co-present AB 137 with my colleague and friend from the other side of the House. This bill modernizes, first of all, Assemblymember Alexis Hansen, District 32 for the record. This bill modernizes the advertising requirements for lien sales by allowing notices to be published online or in countywide newspapers rather than being limited to judicial district publications. This update is particularly beneficial for Nevada's rural and northern communities, many of which I represent, where access to traditional print media is often limited. Furthermore, keeping costs down for the tenants and the owners is of particular concern in the rural and northern communities. And as a tenant owner, of a storage unit in rural Nevada, I can attest to the contracts where when you sign up, you have to provide your email address, you have to provide a secondary address and an emergency contact so that if for some reason the unit owners needed to get in touch with you, they had ample checks in place to reach you. Also, in regards to access to the internet in rural Nevada, Starlink has provided some incredible resources for people to have internet service. We have a very remote location in northern Elko County, and Starlink provides us the internet that we're not normally able to get. And the more of the urban areas in my rural districts, they do have broadband and are able to access websites. By embracing digital platforms and broader publication options, AB 137 ensures that residents in remote areas receive timely and accessible information about storage lien sales. This not only enhances transparency, but also promotes greater participation in these sales, potentially leading to better outcomes for both storage facility owners and the community. AB 137 reflects our commitment to equitable access to information for all Nevadans, regardless of geography, and with even the limitations of general circulation newspapers in parts of my district, we have this option for electronic. I urge your support for this common sense bipartisan legislation. Now, you go ahead and introduce them.
At this time, we're going to go ahead and pass it off to the Self-Storage Association. I know that they have a rather lengthy PowerPoint, so I'll ask them to keep it brief for you. And then I would ask the chair if it's all right that I leave and return to waste where we have a hearing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, and we will welcome the Self-Storage Association. There really is an association for everything.
Indeed there is, Madam Chair. David Goldwater, Goldwater, representing the Self-Storage Association. I have with me Daniel Bryant, and I will go through the PowerPoint very quickly. The goal of this bill was just to kind of explain to you how the system works, tell you that we're just modernizing solely the advertising portion of where the lien bill affects people, keeping all the other consumer protections in place, all the notices, all the written notices. Self-storage, you guys are almost all familiar with it. It is people go, just like they do with apartments, they go rent a space, they sign a contract, they put their stuff in, usually pay for the term of the contract, and then they leave. Sometimes they leave without paying what they've contracted to, and then there's steps in the law to take care of what happens. Today, what's happening is that when they don't pay, their goods are sold. You guys probably see storage wars, or there's even TV shows about it. And inside every potential storage unit is the Picasso that they forgot they had or picked up at a yard sale, and everybody's going to be rich. That is hardly the case. Usually it's somebody that just moved out, didn't want to pay anymore, and they just kind of left their things there for other people to move out. There are steps that you go through in the law, and there are costs that those tenants end up incurring, including the cost of advertising and all the rest. One of the burdens is when this bill, and I put the legislative history in your packets and on your Nellis, in 1983 there wasn't an internet. As far as I was told, it wasn't around. So that wasn't an option. In the bill, we conjunctively say you can still advertise in a newspaper of general circulation that is defined in statute, or you can advertise in a more modern way that makes sense to people, reaches more people, and gets more visibility to the people who are selling the thing, which in the end reduces costs to the customer. Is this a trend across the country? What are other states doing? Yes, of course it is. Most states are moving towards a digital model, if any advertisement at all. So that's really important. I won't run through all this. I'm going to let Daniel Bryant, who's with me, go through this, but under the current law, it's costly. Under the proposed law, it's better and way more efficient. I mean, imagine what we do with everything on the internet now compared to requiring. It seems just bizarre that we're still requiring some of these things in a newspaper of general circulation. Only 10 states still require 2 publications in printed media. And that is moving to less than 10. Most states allow for some alternatives, 6 require none at all, and these are some of the states that do it. Let me introduce to you now Daniel Bryant of the Self-Storage Association. He'll be fast and process so you have a better understanding.
Is your microphone on?
Apologies, can you hear me now?
No problem. Go
I'll
ahead.
start over. Appreciate the opportunity to address this body this morning. Chair Scheibel, Vice Chair Flores, and members of the committee. Daniel Bryant, for the record, DanielBryant. I am legal and legislative counsel to the National Self-Storage Association based in Alexandria, Virginia. Wanted to follow up on my colleague, Mr. Goldwater's remarks, and just zoom out a little bit again, just to make sure and put AB 137 into the context that I think that it needs. Again, here in front of you, you have sort of a flow chart that kind of outlines the various steps that are currently required by the law. As you can see there in step 6, this is the only piece that would be amended here. So again, just starting from the top and going through it very quickly, as a threshold matter, every self-storage owner-operator in the state is required to present a written agreement to every customer that must be signed and executed. There's a number of provisions in the law that have to be included in order for it to be an enforceable agreement and for their, to ensure that they have lien rights if and when a customer should default. Again, for the overwhelming majority of customers in the state, that's the end of the story. Everybody will get the benefit of the bargain, opportunity to utilize the space. Rent will be timely remitted for whatever duration of time, and everyone will be happy with the transaction. If and when there is an issue, 2 is really where the process begins. If you have a customer who continues to utilize the space, but at some juncture declines to continue to make timely payments, this is when the process really starts and the law really kicks in. So there, again, will be sent a first notice of default with an opportunity to cure. If that is cured, again, then there's no issue. You go no further. To the extent that that first notice is sent and the default is not cured, then there is a second required notification to the customer. Want to highlight in particular that second notification, owners are required to send what is called a declaration in opposition. So again, if a customer receives that, all they have to do is send it back to the owner-operator, basically saying, I oppose this lien sale, and that immediately kicks you out of the self-help remedy of the law and into the court system. Again, beyond that, every owner-operator really does go above and beyond to try to make contact. These truly are not moneymakers by any stretch of the imagination. So again, every owner-operator that we represent will make every contact possible, up to and including phone calls, text messages, additional direct mailings, additional direct emails, and so on and so forth. Again, right now, the penultimate step, to the extent that you've gone through that exhaustive process, is a requirement that the unit be advertised in the newspaper. Again, what we're proposing here is a small modification to that, keeping the newspaper option to the extent that the owner-operator believes that is the best and most effective way to market the unit. However, if they believe that perhaps more updated technologies would be beneficial, the opportunity to put that unit on a publicly accessible website would be the additional option here. Again, just to put a fine point on it, there is no change to any of those other direct notification provisions. And again, that's something that all of our members follow to the letter, and again, as I mentioned a moment ago, even go above and beyond. Notch it over. So again, a question then becomes, well, where will these be advertised? What are the websites? There's a number of them, but I asked the marketing department, one of the largest companies that provides these services to our members, and as you can see, the numbers, in my estimation, speak for themselves. These websites have an immense amount of traffic. People go there specifically looking for these units and the opportunity to bid on them. The one additional benefit relative to current newspapers is that it actually can provide real time the number of views that it has. Again, obviously newspaper technology being printed on physical paper, that's just simply not something that they are capable of providing. Again, an additional benefit relative to shifting to these online platforms. And again, already heard just generally kind of this, but wanted to provide, again, sort of a general example of some of these lien sales and just generally what kind of money that we're talking about. Again, this is just for example purposes, but this is a very common setup. Owed $1,000, auction will bring in about 200. So again, as a threshold matter, before you've even gotten to the advertising costs, you're already out about 80% of what is lawfully owed to you. So then once you, again, continue through the process and add in those publication fees, you're really talking about, in my estimation, adding a tax on a loss. So again, we're really just trying to update the law to provide some additional options for self-storage owner-operators in the state. And as Mr. Goldwater indicated earlier in the presentation, this is something that's been widely accepted across the country, and the rest of the states are certainly headed in this direction. So again, very much appreciate the opportunity to address this body today, and be certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Chair Scheibel, in summary, David Goldwater again. In summary, we're all members, or most of us are members, of a very unique generation. We remember a time when there wasn't an internet and there were newspapers. And let me just say on a personal note, I love newspapers. I miss the days of getting the paper, sitting down and reading something physically in my hand. I still do it if I can. But unfortunately, the world is moving away from us. If we want to access eyeballs here, and we want to access people and get the most value and relieve as much as we can and make something efficient, we just can't continue to subsidize a dying technology with these sorts of government mandates, and that's why we're suggesting modernizing this. And thank you to Assemblywoman Hansen. Thank you to Assemblywoman Torres-Fawcett for their enthusiastic and well-informed support of this.
Thank you so much. I think we have a couple questions. I'll start with Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I have some concerns about the bill, and I told you this yesterday when you were in my office. The point here is that not everybody has access to the internet, and not everybody thinks that the easiest thing to do is use an app. In fact, I represent a lot of senior citizens who don't even know how to use an app and don't have internet access, and they do rely on the newspaper, and they do subscribe to the newspaper. And it's great that we have options. You know, some people can use internet and apps, some people can read the newspaper. I subscribe to the newspaper. I enjoy reading the newspaper. But that's just my personal choice. In this bill, we're talking about notice. And while someone's opinion might be, oh, it's just notice to the people who want to come out and rummage through somebody else's non-paid storage facility, notice, I looked up, and I'll read you the definition. The primary purpose of notice is to formally communicate information to individuals, informing them about events or actions that may affect their rights or interests. It ensures due process under the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, provides awareness, and allows for informed action or response. In a legal setting, notice is crucial for due process, guaranteeing that individuals are informed of legal proceedings that could impact their rights or property. This allows that person to exercise their rights and defend their interests. So we're talking about notice that's reasonably calculated to inform people of their rights. Inform them that everything that they put into their storage facility is going to now be liened and go up for sale and taken from them. So I just feel that it's really important that we have different mechanisms. If you wanted to do both, you know, maybe once in the newspaper and once online, I want to make sure that the notice is reasonably calculated to give everybody who is going to be losing their property notice. So your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Krasner, for your comments. I certainly do appreciate it. I guess
Sorry, we just need your name for the record.
Apologies. Daniel Bryant, D-A-N-I-E-L-B-R-Y-A-N-T. Certainly appreciate all of the concerns that you have raised. I guess, again, in my estimation, again, as walked through a little bit ago, just the statutory structure is set up in such a way that there's multiple forms of direct notification that are already required. And again, in addition to that, to the extent that you have an individual who would like to disclose an alternative contact, not only is that notification going to go directly to the occupant, but then also to that friend, neighbor, relative who might similarly be disclosed. And I do appreciate your concern relative to the newspaper and whether or not folks might be getting that or not. I guess, again, for that hypothetical to sort of play out, somebody would have to be non-responsive to the multiple forms of direct notification that are sent to them, but then, I guess just by happenstance, pick up the one newspaper on the one day of the week in that one particular publication, see that their name is there, which then prompts them to go down to the facility and pay the debt that's owed. That is certainly something that is, admittedly possible, again, just in our estimation, not something that happens with much of any frequency. So again, really trying to just expand out the universe of platforms that can be utilized for these things. And again, just as I showed a moment ago, some of these platforms do get a tremendous amount of activity. And so again, that's really our intent here, is certainly not to prevent anyone from being notified of that. We think that's certainly paramount, and something, again, that would continue with the statute as it's presently written. Again, really just looking to expand out the universe of options.
And Madam Chair, David Goldwater, just to put a finer point and answer a finer legal point, I appreciate your citing the notice definition, the legal definition, because it is an important one. In this case, we're not talking about notice. We're talking about advertising. This is an advertising piece. As you can see from this slide, notice exists in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. In this case, we're just talking about where this is advertised. So I don't want to conflate the two terms because they're distinctly different legal terms.
Oh, well, what is it that you're advertising? Notice that their property is liened and going to be sold?
Advertising that the property that the David Goldwater, notice that we're advertising that the contract has been violated, the rent has not been paid. The consequence of that non-payment of rent is going to be the sale of these items. And then the consequences of that sale is the proceeds will then be deducted from what the tenant owes against their rent, as was outlined in that contract.
Thank you, Chair. That sounds like notice to me. That sounds like all the things that are required in a notice. So it's a notice.
Okay.
You said that you give multiple notification to the owner, to the lessor. Tell me how many is that? Directly to the owner or lessor of that space, please.
Thank you, Senator Krasner. For the record, Daniel Bryant, D-A-N-I-E-L-B-R-Y-A-N-T. The law requires a minimum of 2 direct notices. So again, every owner-operator will ensure that those 2 notifications are there to comply with the law. But as I mentioned earlier, beyond that, everybody will send multiple forms above and beyond that, because again, the objective here is really to make contact to resolve the payment dispute in a way that does not require the sale of the unit.
Thank you. I'm sorry. So the law requires 2 direct forms of notice. And what are the 2 direct forms of notice?
Thank you, Senator Krasner, for the question. Daniel Bryant, for the record. Are you asking what the specific line items that need to be included in the notification are?
I'm just wondering, so is that direct notice a letter, a notice taped on their facility that they rent? What is it?
Thank you again, Senator Krasner. For the record, Daniel Bryant. Yes, that is a direct notification that would be sent either to their mailing address or their email address. That's an option that they would have to disclose either one of those and to request specifically either that it be mailed to them directly at a physical address or, again, for them to disclose an email address so that those notifications would be provided to them in that fashion.
All right, we will go next to Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I guess I'm feeling really old today. Is anybody else in the room that was a paper boy by any chance? A few of us. Look at that. Actually, more than I expected. No, when Assemblywoman Torres Fawcett mentioned she's never received the delivery of a newspaper. Man, I'm really getting old. Look, I love newspapers. I'm like you, David. I would love to be sitting here right now, you know, going through the paper and like we used to do in the old days and go out on the porch in the morning and pick them up. In fact, Assemblywoman Hanson worked for the Sparks Tribune and had a column in high school. I had a column for 17 years in the Sparks Tribune and the Daily Elko Daily Free Press. So, you know, nothing against newspapers. But the reality is what you guys are addressing here today is just a reality. The trend is clear that these types of advertisements, notices, are going electronically. Why? Because virtually nobody does what we just described anymore. So the idea of them seeing in the legal ads in the back of the newspaper, like there used to be, there was 10,000 of them, it seemed like, in those little tiny print things. They just happen to catch the fact that their property may be auctioned off, and that's their first exposure to that. I'm sorry, that just doesn't happen anymore. So, so to me, this bill's just a common sense reality. I mean, look, the number of people that still actually read exclusively newspapers and have no connection to internets and things like that, I mean, there's just dinosaurs. There's just so few of them anymore that it's you know, really ridiculous to not allow this, because this doesn't eliminate the ability. If you choose to use a newspaper, you still can. This is just an option. So to me, it's kind of like, looking at the other states and so forth, the trend is clearly there. So I don't know, is there any, we already covered legal notices. You guys already do additional. This isn't really the first time they'd be exposed to the fact that their property may come up for auction, right? Already had 2 notices. Just kind of wondering, why would there be any opposition to this other than we're trying to preserve a type of industry that is so antiquated, literally nobody has them, nobody even has paper boys anymore, you know? I mean, that we're talking like horse and buggy days compared to what we do today.
Senator Hanson, David Goldwater, through you, Madam Chair.
You can go direct.
Yes, ma'am. I totally agree. And if we want to subsidize the print newspaper, we have, I wish we would. Okay? I wish we as a body, in the various ways we spend money in this state, having a fourth estate, a printed fourth estate, is something I think would be of value and something that I think would be worth public money. But mandating that we publish, and there's tax notices, there's default notices, those are all mandated to be printed in the public. And you guys fight those bills come up every time and the League of Counties do it. Let's subsidize them, but let's not do it on the backs of different industries like self-storage or some of the people that are, because of the costs accrue to the tenant. The costs accrue to the tenant. They're not relieved of their obligation, and all these costs, these administrative costs, are borne by them eventually. That's what they're end up as part of their debt. So.
Madam Chair, also, I can't help but I remember in this building when there used to be a whole bank of payphones right where you leave the building on the front now. It's almost like, should we have subsidized payphone industries? Because no, because everybody's got cell phones now. Nobody even knows what a payphone is. They're almost like an antique thing. I think we're kind of at that same step with newspapers, unfortunately. And while I kind of like the nostalgic aspect of subsidizing them, I'd be very uncomfortable using tax dollars to subsidize them. Also, I remember when there used to be stacks and stacks of newspapers delivered to this building, and there were big tables on the Assembly and Senate side of every major publication in the state every day. That's gone. I mean, I haven't seen a physical newspaper in this building in I don't know how long. Been a while. So anyway, Madam Chair, I think the bill's completely reasonable. Thank you for answering my questions, and appreciate the time to have a little walk down a nostalgic lane that's kind of disappearing.
Thank you, Senator Hanson.
Thank you. I think we also had a question from Senator Ellison. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for allowing the dinosaur to speak. I was looking on page 2 under section 1, line 10, and that says that for a period of 10 days consecutive. Why is that? Is that under 108.477 in the Nevada statute, or is that something that I need to know? The reason that is You know, there's so many ways to get to people. I have the paper delivered every day. When I get done with it, I take it to my employees. When they get done with it, I give it to a friend, use it for starting his fireplace. So it can't do that with a computer. And I'll tell you another person that used to have the computer in this building, and he used it for a doorstop. And that was State Assemblyman John Carpenter. But the problem is, it should be up to the individual. And why can't they put the contract, when they do the contracts, I'm going to rent this building for so many months and so on. And at the bottom of it, it says, if in default, would you rather be notified by computer or internet or the paper? And that should have been into question. It's a way to let them know, we're going to notify you in this option and do. But we look at the paper all the time, and we see stuff in there that people that's passed or whatever, or kids that's done stuff in 4-H. You're not going to find it on the internet unless you look for hours and hours and hours. So I'm a supporter. I'm definitely a newspaper guy, but we also use computers every day in my office, and I can't keep my staff off of them. So it's pretty bad. But I think it should be an option to the individual that when because this is going to go back on his rear, however he decides he's going to do it, by internet or by newspaper. It's still going to be a bill that's going to be billed to him. But I think that should be the option, is put him in a contract and say, how do you want notified? Because if you're in default, we're going to notify you so many days after that, then we're going to have an auction. And it seemed like to me that it'd end a lot of this stuff. And I'm not the brightest light bulb in the world. I'm just a dinosaur, according to my friend. But I would like to see if there could be an amendment to allow that, or however you want to do it. But I think it should be done in the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ellison, for your questions and comments. Going back to the apologies, Daniel Bryant for the record. Going to the first item in terms of where the 10 consecutive days came from, that was really our effort to expand out. So again, as the law is presently written right now, the requirement is once a week for 2 weeks, but that's just 2 times. So again, that could run potentially on a Tuesday and then the subsequent Wednesday. So for a total of 2 publications. Our effort really here is to expand that out and say 2 doesn't seem to be sufficient, so why don't we increase that significantly to 10 consecutive days? Literally 5 times the current requirement. Again, the idea being, if it runs a little bit longer on the internet, hopefully there will be a few more individuals that might be able to see that unit, potentially be interested in it, potentially bid on it, which again ultimately is going to drive up the ultimate sale price, which again benefits both the self-storage owner and by extension the consumer, as it's going to lessen their debt obligation. To the second point, and I certainly appreciate relative to potentially a provision in the contract that would provide the occupant with the ability to make an election. That is, again, just wasn't presently how this particular statute was kind of set up. So again, the amendment here really just, again, sort of envisioned making a small modification to, again, the existing law. However, to the extent that this body thinks that that's something that we need to consider, we would certainly be happy to look into that.
And for a finer point, David Goldwater, again, Senator Ellison, just so there's no confusion, when the tenant signs the contract, they are choosing to pick how they would like to be notified. They can be notified if they owe money, by email or by contract or by regular mail. This statute exists for when there's no response from any of it, and it finally goes to sale. The owner wants to find the tenant somehow, some way. This isn't a first resort, this is an absolute last resort, so just in case.
And I agree, but I think that the 10 days is, that kind of limits the paper. I mean, when it was 2 days, I could understand that. They could throw it on the counter and then eventually pick it up and read it or whatever, but at 10 days, it seemed like to me if it's going to be in the paper, it should be left at 2 days. And if it's going to go on the internet, it could go for 2 weeks. That's up to them. But for the cost and because some papers don't run every day, or it's every other day or something. So I'm just looking for an easy situation for this to help everybody. not like my dinosaur friend, but but I think there's options in here to make it work. But thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions? Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair. And Senator Ellison, if you're a T-Rex, I'm a Brontosaurus, because I certainly grew up in this era too. My question to Mr. Bryant is, the internet website to notify renters of a storage site, is that existing in any states now? Does it exist in states that still require publication in a newspaper? Does it exist in Nevada? I just wonder if you could talk about nationally and in Nevada if there is an internet website like this to notify consumers.
Certainly. Thank you, Senator, for the question. Daniel Bryant for the record. There's multiple platforms that presently exist that offer these services for owner-operators across the country. There isn't necessarily a single central website or repository that would necessarily act there. Again, most of our member companies probably utilize somewhere between 5 to 6 online auction companies. Certainly would be happy to provide a list of those to be able to kind of look through and see. And again, the law already presently permits owner-operators to conduct lien sales online in addition to in-person at the facility. So it's again sort of expanding out and permitting those platforms to also be utilized for the advertising element as well.
Thank you. And may I have a brief follow-up, Chair? And in those other states, I guess, that have this internet website notice, is the renter of the storage unit, are they given that website when they sign their paperwork to rent it, or how are they notified to check that website?
Thank you again for the question, Senator Daniel Bryant, for the record. The short answer is every state law is a little bit different in terms of what needs to be provided. Some say that you have to include it in the default notice that needs to be sent to them. Others are silent on the matter. Really kind of similar, quite frankly, to what presently exists for the newspaper notification. There's no requirement that the specific newspaper that will be utilized be disclosed in either the rental agreement or any subsequent direct notices that would be sent to the occupant.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions from members of the committee? All right, not seeing any further questions. We really do appreciate your presentation. We will move to testimony now at this time. We will start with testimony in support of AB 137 here in person. Please come on down to the front in Carson City or Las Vegas to give support testimony on AB 137.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tom Clark, here on behalf of U-Haul, the company that's known for its big trucks and its moving equipment into trailers and all that stuff. Well, the public storage space has also become a big part of U-Haul's business, simply because the movers that were using our trucks wanted to then be able to just easily store the materials that they had at the facility. In my conversations with them, less than 1% of the tenants that we have in the public storage space is actually default. And a big reason for that is the tactics that they take to find the tenant and find out why they're not paying. If they can capture that tenant in the first 4 steps of that graph, that's their ideal solution, because it is very, very expensive to hold the auction, as this bill addresses, advertise the auction, get the materials out if nobody bids on the auction. Sometimes the facility is so messed up and gross that there's a cleaning that has to take place. I say all that because their primary objective is to find that tenant. They will search the obituaries. They will look at social media. They will not just send the email and the letters of notice that are on the contract, letting them know, but they truly want to find out if this is a bereavement issue. We want to make sure that the family gets the materials back. If this is an issue where the person just has said, you know what, have it. I don't care for it. I stuck it in there because I had to move out of my apartment real quickly, and they just, by default, give up on it. So this particular piece of legislation, we don't see it as a war between newspapers and the internet. I am one of those fossils. I won't go to prehistoric times, but I did have 3 paper routes. I love the feel of ink on my fingers when I read the Sunday paper if I pick it up, which is expensive. If you read the New York Times, it's almost $12, So this is not a war between the newspaper industry, which we love, and the internet. This is just a way of saying, if this option were here, they would use it on top of, most likely, the same way that they've been doing it for years, which is to also put some level of notice in the newspaper so that potential buyers have an opportunity to see that it's for sale and come help U-Haul recover some of their costs for the loss that they're going to take on the default. Thank you.
And thank you. Do we have anybody else wishing to speak in support of Assembly Bill 137? Good morning and welcome. And we do have one additional seat. Feel free to come forward if anybody else wishes to join us. Welcome.
For the record, my name is Teddy Craig. I'm Catfish Kickstart Program. My problem with this is a little bit different. I had the storage, and in the process of in the storage, I was changing houses. So I took everything out the storage and put half my stuff, left it there, changing my lock. I went back, my whole lock was changed. I'm talking about 4 days later. They did not inform me. They did not let me know that they was changing, putting another lock on my thing. I put a zip tie on there, and when I asked the manager says, oh, well, the lock was gone, so we figured that you had left us already. My storage is still paid today, a month later. I paid it up in advance. So what do I do in that type of situation? I was not informed. No one told me anything, and they just took away my storage, and all of my stuff is gone. And I was at Waldorf Storage over in, they call it the lower living life. But, well, I mean, that's just a question to put out there. My stuff is gone because I changed my lock, and I didn't have a lock on there. What do I do?
And sir, just for the sake of clarity, I don't believe that that testimony was in support of this bill. But I wanted to clarify, or are you in support of this bill?
Teddy Craig again. I don't know whether to support a bill to saying that they're going to advertise and say that they're going to send this out and say that out to tell you that your storage is gone when that did not happen to me. I would support the bill because we need to know that you're going to get rid of our stuff. But it did not happen to me. And I mean, 4 days before my stuff was gone, and there was another lock, and there was another tenant in my storage, when my bill is still paid a month after.
Understood. And thank you for joining us. And I don't believe we have any questions for you. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to join us in support of Assembly Bill 137? Seeing none, we'll go to the phone lines. Anybody wishing to testify over the phone in support of Assembly Bill 137?
Thank you, Vice Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 137, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to provide support testimony at this time.
All right, we will move to opposition testimony. Anybody wishing to testify in opposition here in Carson City or in person in Las Vegas is invited forward to do so now. We will start in Carson City with in-person opposition testimony to AB 137. The button to turn on the microphone. You found it?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. I used to the Las Vegas one. Cami Dempsey, representing the Nevada Press Association, KAMI, last name Dempsey, DEMPSEY. I appreciate the very thorough presentation, and I appreciate the discussion about whether print or online is the best way to communicate with our constituents. And I think it's an ongoing discussion, which we at the Review Journal and on the Press Association have had ongoing discussions. I think the Press Association also believes that we are a trusted source. It's where everybody goes for these notifications. As we all know, there are multiple websites that everybody can, try to navigate to figure out where their information is coming from, but it is something that is absolutely vital. So when you're talking about people's personal belongings, should they have to navigate how many websites to go there? Should they not be allowed the notification to actually see that? I mean, I've been in multiple situations where my father has told me, hey, did you see this in the newspaper? You actually have property, because it was notified. So I think notification is absolutely vital. It's key. and in this day and age is still important. And so I appreciate your opposition to this, and I'll turn it over.
Good morning, Scott Sibley for the record, S-I-B-L-E-Y. Good morning, Chair Scheibel and members of the committee. Scott Sibley with Nevada Legal News and the Nevada Press Association as a board member. I come here today in opposition to AB 137 because it will reduce the chances that someone losing their personal property can save it. As many of you here are attorneys and understand due process and property rights, this bill shouldn't sit well with you. I've always been an advocate for more is better. In Nevada, all notices that are placed in a Nevada newspaper are placed on one searchable statewide website for free run by the Press Association, and the notices stay there in perpetuity. When someone is losing their property, whether it's their house, their car, or their most valuable family heirlooms, a storage unit, we can't do enough notifications. The difference between an apartment eviction and a storage unit eviction, with residential evictions, it's handled by the courts with a judge and notice. In Nevada, we don't use the courts on storage evictions, and now they don't even want to publish the notice to take the eviction on the storage unit. I want to talk about costs for a second. They had entered an exhibit the other day that had costs in here, and it talked about our cost. Well, there's an asterisk up there next to it. And if you read down at the bottom, on 11 units, it was $654. It's $65 a unit, but that includes mailing, publication, and canceling a unit on storage after the unit's gone to live auction, and dumping fees. That's not just the publication fees. So I brought into you today an ad for U-Haul, which is my client. Their last ad that they ran, they had 135 units in one ad. The ad was $335. The incremental cost per unit was $2.33 to notice these people that they were going to lose their family possessions. These auctions are also featured on these shows we call Storage Wars, and Assembly Bill 137 wants to allow a select few to know when the sales are taking place. There's approximately 461 storage facilities operating in the state of Nevada, and tracking these auctions on 461 individual websites will definitely allow the big guys to win at the Storage Wars and purchase people's family heirlooms with less competitive bidding to save $2.35. I urge you to protect Nevadans and their families' heirlooms and vote no on AB 137. Thank you, and I stand here to answer any questions.
Sounds like we do have a question. Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't know if it's a question for him or legal, actually. As I understand it, this isn't about a legal notice. This is actually an advertisement for the sale after the person that owned the property or rented the unit has already received two notices that are actually the legal notices. This, as I understand it, under Section 1, Number 2, the owner of the property shall advertise the sale. This isn't a legal notice. So I'm kind of wondering, you mentioned notices, worried about property rights and stuff like that. They've already done that twice. This isn't a legal notice for the person. This is actually an advertisement publicly about the potential sale of the contents of a unit after the person who owned the storage unit has been notified legally. So are we confusing it, or you, because you mentioned legal notice, this isn't a legal notice as I understand it.
Chair Scheibel, to you and through to Member Hansen.
Go direct.
Thank you. I'm not an attorney, so I can't give legal advice, but I will tell you, as the publisher of Nevada Legal News, the ads all start out and say, notice of sale is hereby given, usually in accordance with the statute, that the sale is taking place. It's no different than a foreclosure notice of sale, no different than an auto notice of sale. So I believe the interpretation is this is notice. When they go to court and challenge, like the gentleman that was here and said he didn't get any notice, they're most likely they'll provide the affidavit provided by me, signed by me, that says I, as publisher, published this notice on these two dates to meet this statutory requirement, and then they will be able to explain to the gentleman that how these notices were done and if they were given properly. So my interpretation, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, can't give you legal advice, but I believe it is proper legal notice.
Okay, well, I guess the question should go to our legal counsel, and is this, it's obviously a legal notification of an advertisement of sale, but the tenant already received at least two legal notices under Nevada law prior to this advertisement of the sale. My understanding correct on that?
I agree this is a question for legal. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Scully.
Yes, Senator Hansen, we believe that your interpretation is correct. This would be, notice would have been given previously legal notice to the person who was utilizing the unit. This would be for the public advertisement upsale.
Very good. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Oh, it looks like we have another question, if you don't mind, from Senator Ellison.
Don't put it as a statement, but I had,
I'm not sure if your microphone's on.
yes, maybe. I'm hiding it. I had an individual I know really well that had a heart attack. He was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. Next thing you know, they fly him to Salt Lake City. A month later, comes back, and then he's bedridden at the house. He has no computer. He's an older guy. Finally, somebody told him and says, "Hey, you know what? Your stuff is gone up there in your storage unit." So when he got healthy enough to go up there, everything that he owned was gone. All his tools and stuff like this was gone. If it wouldn't have been in the newspaper, the guy next door wouldn't have noticed it and seen that it was going up for sale. But it's too late. So I think the newspaper has its valid points in some areas. Is like not everybody has the internet. He don't have the internet. He lives in a camp trailer, the poor old guy. But I don't know if you want to comment to that. Not everybody has a computer.
Thank you. I mean, that's one of the reasons why.
I'm sorry, we need your name for the record.
Scott Silly for the record. That's one of the reasons why actually my family actually funded the website for the Press Association as a donation, a charitable donation, because I believe that you need to put it everywhere. Put it in the newspaper, mail to them, and get it on the internet. I mean, people need their stuff. You can't lose you don't want to lose your stuff, your house. People have a right to notice, and we need to try to find these people the best we can.
All right, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
And I don't see anybody else coming forward to give in-person opposition testimony on AB 137, so we will go to the phones for opposition on AB 137.
Thank you. If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 137, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Assembly. My name is Jamie Griffin, and I'm calling today to urge you to oppose AB 137, legislation that would remove legal storage notices from the newspapers. Let me tell you my story. A few years ago, I was going through the darkest time of my life. I had just lost my husband unexpectedly, and I was left there to care for my 2 children alone. We were struggling emotionally and financially. In the middle of that chaos, I had fallen behind on payments for a storage unit that held nearly everything that mattered to our family. Baby books, photos, my husband's belongings, things that can never be replaced. I had no idea that the unit was going to be auctioned off. No one called me, no one emailed. The only reason I found out at the time, because a friend had happened to read the public notice section of the local newspaper. She called me frantic and said, "Jamie, I think your storage unit is listed for sale." Because of that newspaper notice, I was able to rush over, pay the balance, and save my children's memories. If it weren't for that public notice in print, something that people still read, especially the elderly, low income, or those in transition without stable internet access, everything would have been gone without warning. These notices are not just legal formalities, they're a lifeline. They're sometimes the last chance people have before losing everything. Moving these notices exclusively online will not make the system more fair or transparent. It'll make it easier for companies to sell people's belongings without giving them a real opportunity to respond. Not everyone checks a website. Not everyone has regular internet access, but we still pick up newspapers. We still read what's happening in our communities. Please don't take that away from us. Thank you for your time, and I sincerely ask that you vote no on AB 137.
Hello, this is Ben Rowley, Rowley. I'm the owner of 4 weekly newspapers in Nevada. AB 137 represents a significant erosion of consumer protections, public transparency, and individual property rights. The bill would eliminate one of the few statutory tools that provide meaningful oversight in an industry granted extraordinary authority, the ability to seize and sell renters' personal property without a court order. Historically, Nevada law required both personal notice to renters and public notice to newspapers to act as checks and balances on this power. AB 137 would dismantle that balance and allow facility owners to provide notice solely via their own websites or other commercially reasonable means, reducing public access and transparency. Key reasons for my opposition to this bill: due process and public oversight, public notices in newspapers, which are also published on NevadaPublicNotices.com, ensure transparency in the absence of judicial review. Removing them invites secrecy and increases the risk of abuse, fraud, or self-dealing by facility owners. Newspaper notices the impartial third party before private assets are forfeited. Critical consumer protection for renters who miss mailed or emailed notices. A newspaper ad may be their last opportunity to learn of an impending auction and recover their belongings, often including confidential documents or irreplaceable personal items. Notice to others with interest in the property: heirs, spouses, lien holders, business partners, and others with a legal or personal interest in the stored property may never know their property is at risk without a public notice. Many of these individuals are not parties to the storage contract and receive no direct communication from facility owners. The newspaper and subsequent online notice publication provides a passive notice opportunity for family and friends to see the notice before their elderly parents or deployed service members lose their possessions. Fair auctions and higher returns. Broad public notice increases bidder participation, helping secure better sale outcomes for renters. Many states recognize that when a facility owner becomes an auctioneer, they owe fiduciary duty to obtain the best possible price. Public notice is vital to that process. Equity and one-sided contracts. Storage contracts are typically standardized, written by the industry, and leave renters with minimal bargaining power. Eliminating public notice further tilts the scale in favor of facility owners. Potential conflicts of interest. In states where facilities may retain unsold property or keep surplus proceeds from auctions, there is a financial incentive to suppress turnout. Weakening notice requirements make it easier for such conflicts to arise. Community accountability. Public notices allow journalists, community members, and advocates to monitor facility practices. This accountability is essential in an industry that operates with little regulation or oversight. The current notice system works. It ensures that when a renter falls behind, there's an opportunity for transparency, fairness, and recovery, not just for the renter, but for the community and for the market itself. Thank you.
And members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Benjamin Lippman, and I'm the Chief Legal Officer of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. I'm here to speak in opposition to this bill because the self-storage industry is already granted a rare legal privilege. It can seize and sell a renter's belongings without ever going to court. That's why lawmakers have historically required both personal and public notice before any auction takes place. The public notice in a newspaper serves as a crucial check ensuring transparency, accountability, and fairness in an otherwise one-sided process. This notice is not just a formality. It serves several critical functions. It increases auction visibility and participation to ensure a fair price. It alerts family, friends, or lien holders who may have a legal interest in the contents, and it provides oversight in the absence of legal review. If a facility simply posts notice on its own website, the odds of anyone else knowing or intervening drop dramatically. Public notice is often the last chance for a consumer to discover their property is at risk. Without it, auctions happen in silence, belongings disappear, and due process evaporates. This safeguard must remain in place to prevent secretive, unregulated seizures that put every Nevadan at risk.
If you have recently joined us and would like to provide testimony in opposition to AB 137, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no more callers wishing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
All right, thank you. We will move to testimony in neutral on AB 137. Anybody wishing to testify in neutral in person is invited forward to do so now. I don't see anybody coming forward here in Carson City or Las Vegas, so we will go to the phones, please, for neutral testimony on AB 137.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in the neutral position for AB 137, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
All right, then that brings us to the conclusion of testimony. If the presenters have any closing remarks, we'll welcome you down to the front now to give those remarks.
Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, thank you so much for a generous amount of time to go over this. I appreciate the opportunity and just really want to make sure that, I've been on the Assembly Judiciary since 2019, and I personally would never be a party to any sort of legislation that violates due process. And I think, as it's still up on the board there are 5, we aren't touching noticing, we're talking about an advertisement. We have 5 steps in place of proper ability to try to make good faith efforts to get in touch with a tenant. So just want to make sure that we understand the difference between notice and advertisement, and appreciate again the time to be here, and thank you.
Senator Scheibel, thank you, Chairman David Goldwater. In conclusion, the anecdotes of people who found things in the newspaper are wonderful, and they do happen. They also happen online, and they happen more often online because it seems to be a growing trend. Further, the definition of newspaper of general circulation is not limited solely to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, a fine publication, or the Reno Gazette-Journal. There are other publications that meet this definition, one of which, by my good friend, the handsome and powerful Mr. Sibley that you saw, is the Nevada Legal News. You can publish there. And unless you're getting that and sitting on your porch with the Nevada Legal News on a Sunday, you wouldn't see this in the RJ, you wouldn't see it anyplace else. So that's one of the important clarifications I thought we might make as well. Thank you again for your time. Thanks to Assemblywoman Hanson and Assemblywoman Torres Fawcett for their time and diligence in this matter.
Thank you so much. I'll now close the hearing on AB 137. I will now open the hearing on AB 193. Please come on forward when you're ready to present AB 193.
Thank you. Is there green? Is red on? Red's on. I thought green would be on. So sorry about that. Thank you, Chair Scheibel, and thank you to the Senate Committee on Judiciary. My name is Greg Koenig. I represent Assembly District number 38, and we will, being it's a beautiful day outside after a long week and it's almost the afternoon, we'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So this bill, AB 193, at this point in the Nevada NRS and state law, there are certain helps given to victims of sexual assault. And so what we're doing with this bill, Bill 193, is providing the same advantages and helps to those of domestic violence. So we're just extending what's available to victims of sexual assault at this point and including victims of sexual violence at with the same things. And I'll turn the time over to my co-presenter to the
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is William Horn, William common spelling, Horn, H-O-R-N-E, Western Public Affairs, representing SafeNest, our state's largest provider of services for survivors of domestic violence and children affected by domestic violence, and they even provide batterers treatment. We appreciate Assemblyman Koenig's agreement to bring this important piece of legislation. He states it perfectly that this bill is brought forward to provide those survivors of domestic violence police report that they oftentimes need for various reasons, like not getting evicted from their apartment or their home that they're renting, for their employers, for care. These are compounded problems for victims of domestic violence that make it worse when they have to go and get a police report and then charged for this various report that they need to keep some kind of resemblance of their life that they had before the battery, right? And so this, as Assemblyman Koenig said, basically allows for victims of domestic violence to obtain that police report the same way that a victim of sexual assault is able to obtain that report. And we respectfully ask you to support AB 193. Simple to walk through the bill. It's that section 1. It walks out through that they are entitled to this report within a month, free and unadulterated copies of the report. Of course, law enforcement would be able to redact personalized information as necessary with this request, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Our chair had to go and present a bill. Members, any questions? Senator Hansen, please.
Thanks, Mr. Vice Chair. I have to say, this was Chair Horn when I was a freshman, and right now, Chair Horn, I knew you would say, gentlemen are supposed to wear ties, Mr. Horn. And in the Senate, Senator Raggio would go and get you a tie. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up for a little historical thing again. Question on this bill, actually, seriously. Does there have to be a conviction before, because you say a victim of domestic violence, but obviously there had to be somebody that committed the act. And in that report, that if the individual wasn't convicted and maybe could in fact have been found not guilty, is that report still available? If I'm picturing this report occurs after a conviction of a domestic act. Am I understanding that correctly?
Thank you, Senator. May I go directly to the Senator, Mr. Vice Chair?
Please go direct.
Thank you. This report would be available to victims prior to a conviction. Imagine a person that's living with their significant other, their spouse, and they have to file a report. Please come, etc., and take a report on the incident that occurred. We wouldn't have that victim have to wait through the entire judicial process to be able to obtain it, because these problems that I mentioned in my remarks of a possible eviction, a possible losing your job, whatever, those are appearing right now, not waiting until we figure out whether or not this person is going to be convicted of the allegations. And so, no, sir, this would not wait until after conviction had occurred.
Okay, no, that makes sense, because it does say they can redact it. Right. And so is the current law, because the main point of this law, as I understand it, is to make these free to potential victims. Does the current law allow it, but they can be charged for it? Is that what we're trying to fix here? Or is the current law structured in such a way that they cannot have access to these types of reports?
For the
Might be a
record,
legal
William
question if
Horn,
you don't know.
for the record, what I would say SafeNest is experiencing, Senator, is that oftentimes many of these survivors are charged when presented, when asking for the records by the law enforcement agency that they're seeking it from. Whether or not that agency has the discretion of not charging, I don't know the answer to that, but SafeNest is experiencing those who are coming forth and asking for it, and they have to pay that. Now, oftentimes, nonprofits such as SafeNest can help with monetary issues such as this, but we don't believe they should. We believe that you should be able to get this free, and like I said, we're just putting them at the same level as we do with victims of sexual assault. We believe that that's such a crime that that person needs this assistance with this. They may not have the funds to pay for it, et cetera, to do this, and we don't wait for conviction to do that.
No, that aspect of it seems completely reasonable. I mean, if you're a victim, you can't afford it, but you need the information. It seems unfair that they would actually charge you for that, and if you couldn't pay it, you couldn't get it. But I don't know. I do have a question for legal. Is there currently anything in Nevada law that prevents people from getting it, or if they do request it, that they're forced to pay for it? Or is this entirely new, this concept?
And Greg Koenig, for the record, while he's looking that up, I think this also expedites the process a little bit too. This makes it so they have to receive it within a month. I don't think they're getting it that quick at this point.
Okay. Now I'm just trying to kind of figure out where we're coming from on all this. If our goal here is just to eliminate any cost, all for it. If it's a kind of an entirely new concept, then we're kind of like, okay, what about due process we've talked about? What about, innocent till proven guilty and stuff like that? But you do have a redaction clause in it, I noticed, so maybe some protections. But just want to know if legal had a chance to review that, or is this like an entirely brand new concept?
Senator, it's actually not a concept. If you look in the digest of the bill, this exists right now for survivors of sexual assault. NRS 178A.280 has language that is almost identical to this, and the goal there was to obviously facilitate getting free reports to survivors of sexual assault, and this takes that same concept into incidents of domestic violence. Okay. I think I was going to say that I don't see too many law enforcement types out there in the audience who could speak as to how this actually works in practice, but I don't know that, based on my knowledge of how these things work, that law enforcement agencies are entirely consistent in the state as to when they charge victims, whether they charge them, how much they charge them, whether they even allow them to access certain information if there are cases that are still being investigated or still open, being prosecuted. Sometimes those materials aren't being released, is what I have heard, but I don't know that there's anyone here from law enforcement who could address that.
Looks like we're out of luck today on that. Okay, well, bottom line is we have we do, I'm sorry. We have sexual assault. We're just expanding the concept to domestic violence and then making sure that they can be provided without cost. That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Members, any additional questions? Senator Ellison, please.
Mr. Horn, under Nevada law, if policemen are called, domestic violence, one of them are going to go to jail. Isn't that correct under Nevada law? If the police show up and they're saying there's domestic violence, one of them are going to go to jail. Is that not correct?
Thank you. For the record, William Horn. Pity, if there's probable cause is shown, yes, there is an arrest made, but also the perpetrator needs to be on scene when it happens. The perpetrator's not always on scene when law enforcement arrives to effectuate an arrest. I won't speak much more past that on what law enforcement does and everything. I'm not a police officer, but putting on a different hat, I used to be a criminal defense attorney. And so that was the practice. If somebody's there, there's evidence that domestic violence had occurred, arrest was made. But it is not uncommon for the alleged perpetrator to not be on scene and arrest not be effectuated. But it doesn't mean that the crime didn't occur. And so the victim would still need these documents going forward.
Thank you very much.
Members, any additional questions? The only thing I'll bring up in working with victims and survivors, I know we've had instances where law enforcement has an internal policy and it differs. Henderson may have one, Las Vegas Metro will have another one. In my experience, Las Vegas Metro has been the easiest to work with. But I've had instances where they're trying to get a copy of the police report, but because it's an ongoing investigation or they have some internal policy that they don't release them. Have you had those experiences? And I'm assuming as written, that internal policy would not disallow a victim from getting a copy of their police report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. For the record, William Horn. Personally, I haven't had that experience on having that difficulty in my past profession. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. As this bill is written, they would have 30 days after the request to do that, regardless on whether or not this is a closed case or not. We wouldn't want a victim waiting that period of time for it. So.
And I appreciate that. I just wanted to get that intent. I mean, as written, it doesn't say that their internal policy can supersede what we're doing here. But I do know for a fact that we've had that headache, and it's with very particular jurisdictions. It's an ongoing investigation. You're the victim, we know, but we can't give it to you yet. And it's an absolute headache when they're already going through 1,000 different things, and how important that piece of paper is for that individual, and getting it as soon as possible is important. So I appreciate the work you're doing. Members, no additional questions. I'd like to invite both of you to sit back. And at this time, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 193 to please come forward.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Serena Evans, Policy Director for the Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. We're appreciative of any efforts to reduce barriers and, align our NRS with other types of victimization. So we're very thankful for the bill sponsor for bringing this forward, and we're in strong support. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Joshua Martinez, representing the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We're in support of AB 193. This would lift some of the barriers for the victims of crime. It would give them a police report that they need in order to accomplish the business that they need the report for. Obviously, we would redact some of the important information, things such as social security number, scope ID numbers, and some other information that would be related to the suspect. I know there's some questions on that. The victim, when they're the victim, they get the copy of the report. Currently, we have fee structures where we do charge. This would put this in line, as everybody has said, with the sexual assault, and there is a time frame that they would be able to receive that free report. So we do support this bill, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to help out.
Thank you. Doesn't look like there are any questions. And I don't see anybody else coming forward to give support testimony on AB 193 in person. So we will go to the phones for support testimony on AB 193.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers to provide support testimony at this time.
All right, then we'll go to opposition testimony on AB 193. Anybody wishing to testify in opposition is welcome to the front now to do so.
Good afternoon, Chair Scheibel and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Paloma Guerrero, Paloma Guerrero, on behalf of the Clark County Public Defender's Office. We have a very soft opposition to this bill. It's just about the language. It's a great bill, and we understand the need for free police reports for domestic violence cases. The concerning language is about the bill being complete and unaltered copies of all reports before a case is closed or a plea is taken. People have a right to a fair trial, and at trial we want witnesses' testimony to be their own. We want a person to get on the stand and tell their side of the story without it being tainted or influenced by outside sources. And when law enforcement responds to domestic violence calls, they write up a police report, but they also do a very thorough investigation where they talk to everybody involved, and there could be other reports on there as well, like other witness statements. And when we're talking about complete and unaltered copies of all reports, it would include other witnesses' reports as well. And that gets to the issue of fairness here, because if a victim witness is reading everyone else's statements, reading past the police report before a case is closed, they could learn something new, they could learn some new piece of evidence or lack of evidence. And even if they don't consciously do this, it could still influence their own memory of what happened. Again, we have no issue with free police reports being furnished. The issue is just with complete and unaltered copies of all reports. And if we can ensure that the language is only after a case is closed or a plea is taken, then we would have no opposition at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition is invited forward now. Not seeing anybody in person, we will go to the phones for opposition testimony on AB 193.
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers to provide opposition testimony at this time.
All right, then we will go to neutral testimony on AB 193. Anybody wishing to testify in neutral on AB 193 is invited forward to do so now. I don't see anybody coming forward in person, so we'll go to the phones, please, for neutral testimony on AB 193.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers to provide neutral testimony at this time.
All right, then that brings us to the conclusion of testimony on AB 193. If the sponsor or presenters have any closing remarks, we will welcome you forward to give those now.
Again, thank you, Chair Scheibel. Greg Koenig for the record. You know, I think what we really are looking to do is just to align this with what's happening for the sexual assault victims. I think it's working well, and there hasn't been any issues, and we want to put something forward that aligns it and is the same. If you have something that's a little bit different for every type of crime, it can get fairly confusing. So we want to just align with what already exists and just include domestic violence victims in the same process. So.
For the record, William Horn. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. You know, I would say that Mr. Koenig is correct. This is basically allowing sexual assault victims and victims of domestic violence to be treated the same. So the concerns that Public Defender's Office has that would create some type of unfairness in that process of prosecution, I think it's unwarranted in that we already do this for sexual assault victims, so we can do it for domestic violence victims. Moreover, the very things they're concerned about, when there's this prosecutorial process is going on, you have discovery, and these documents are provided on both sides, and they would be able to see these documents anyway with the prosecuting attorney preparing their witness, which would be the victim, etc. So we believe that the objections are unwarranted, and we ask that you please support this piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, I had to step out to present in another committee, and I'm not sure if you addressed on the record the amendment proposed by the public defenders. I'm assuming that's unfriendly.
Yeah, the amendment that was proposed, they proposed that amendment, for the record, William Horn, sorry, Senator, Madam Chair, basically wanting it to be wait till after the close of the case, which we think is too long for a victim, so it is an unfriendly amendment.
Thank you for clarifying. All right, and thank you for your presentation. I will now close the hearing on AB 193. I will now open the hearing on AB 384.
Thank you very much. Good morning, actually, sorry, good afternoon, Chair Scheibel, Vice Chair Flores, who just left, and committee members. My name is Lisa Cole, that's Lisacole, and I proudly represent Assembly District 4, which is in Northwest Las Vegas. I am joined today by my co-presenter, Ms. Bridget Duffy, who is presenting from Las Vegas. She is the Clark County District Attorney for the Juvenile Justice Division. Chair, first I'd like to just say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present this very important piece of legislation. Like you as a member of the Assembly Judiciary, we often hear bills related to juvenile justice, and that's an essential part of our overall criminal justice system. So the genesis of this bill came from an incident watched around our state a few years ago where a juvenile intentionally drove into retired California Police Chief Andreas Probst while he was riding his bike in my district. The juvenile could be heard on body cam after being arrested, laughing about how, since he was a juvenile, he would be out within 30 days. This statement highlights a need to take a look at how we are supporting youth to rehabilitate rather than the juvenile justice system being a joke to youth who are dangerous to our community. With a lot of stakeholder input, we landed through compromise on the bill before you, which focuses on services that we offer to youth offenders in the juvenile justice system. So our system is rooted in rehabilitation as opposed to punishment, and for good reason. It uses targeted and evidence-based programs to help our youth offenders. The focus is on understanding the root causes of bad actions, teaching coping skills, providing counseling and mental health treatment as needed, and to prevent them from entering into the adult criminal justice system, which is a much, much harsher system. The goal of AB 384 is to create a group of community stakeholders and juvenile justice advocates to work on increased access to wraparound services for our youth upon discharge. We originally also wanted to include the development of an individualized case plan for each child paroled, similar to the process required for juvenile probation pursuant to NRS 62E.507. That process includes regular monitoring and review of the youth's progress and includes input from the child's school, treatment providers, workforce training providers, the parent or guardian, and the child. However, like many of you, because of fiscal considerations, we removed that section, but we hope to work on that in the future in the next session. Chair, with your permission, I will now ask Ms. Duffy to go through the bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Scheibel and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I am Bridget Duffy, BRIGID-DUFFY. I have been an appointed member of the Juvenile Justice Oversight Commission since its inception shortly after the passage of the bill in 2017. I chair the Data Subcommittee for the Commission, and I am a member of the Strategic Planning Committee. At our Strategic Planning Subcommittee meeting on April 30th, the subcommittee voted to take the recommended 2025-26 strategic plan to the full commission for vote in a few months. And if you are on the Juvenile Justice Oversight Commission and listening, just a little spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about parts of that strategic plan that are complemented by AB 384. Our strategic plan that we hope is adopted by the full commission would recommend that we focus on, among other things, 4 things around services for children. We would assess current practices and determine the number of practices or programs that are evidence-based that we provide to children in the system. We would work to strengthen our evidence-based practices. We would engage children and service providers in doing so, and create a family engagement subcommittee. That is part of the strategic plan we're taking forward and where I think that we will complement it with AB 384. So now I'll walk you through section 9 of the bill, which starts by amending 62B with subsection 1 that requires the chair of the Juvenile Oversight Commission to solicit input from persons, organizations, and entities that have knowledge of and experience in wraparound services for children who are or were in the juvenile justice system, including kids that are on probation, those children that are released from state facilities or from regional facilities like our camps in the north and the south. Subsection 2 defines what type of input the commission would want input on, and that would be the availability of services, what services are offered to children and families, including evidence-based home and community-based services, evidence-based reentry programs and services, mentorship and other necessary service needs, and I would summarize those as being job trainings, art services, extracurricular services to keep our kids busy, gym programs, and any other matters related to RAP services deemed relevant by the chair. Subsection 3 requires a report on or about March 1st of every year to the commission for the legislature, and that report would include without limitation a summary of actions performed pursuant to section 1 and 2 and findings and recommendations related to RAP services or the juvenile justice system in general. We definitely have a need for more service providers in our states and especially in the rural areas. Our system is ultimately rooted in rehabilitation and improving community safety through that rehabilitation. And we need to ensure that services we are sending families to are based on evidence to get the best results for children in our communities. AB 384, again, is a great complement to the current JGOC, which is the Juvenile Justice Oversight Commission, and our strategic plan goals. And that concludes my introduction of the bill and some facts for you, and I'd happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're ready for questions now.
All right, any questions from members of the committee, starting with Senator Krasner?
Thank you. I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for you or for Ms. Duffy. Ms. Duffy stated that these people will be reaching out not just to agencies but also to children about some services that might be available to them. What if the children don't want the services? What if they've been released, they've done whatever time they need to do, and they don't want these services? Are they forced to interact with law enforcement, basically?
Thank you for the question, Senator Krasner. Bridget Duffy for the record. So in the juvenile justice system, we offer services through the courts. So it would be part of their court orders to complete services. The important part of wraparound services is that there is an element to that that requires child and family engagement. It's not a one-size-fits-all program. So we wouldn't just send every child to the same programs. It would be what is assessed for this child's needs in order to address their behavioral issues that have caused them to commit delinquent acts and ensure that we address those things. So a simple example would be a child who is committing a lot of batteries or beating a lot of people up. So there would be an assessment. We have assessments which are already required under Chapter 62B that assess the child's risks and needs to the community. And then we would refer that child and family out for the services needed to address the things that were identified in those assessments. The issue we have is that we are missing a piece because our services are lacking in the state. And we need to make sure the services that we offer have meaning. But to ultimately answer your question, the court would require the child to do the services as part of their probation or parole. And if they didn't do the services, then that would be a violation of their probation or parole. And then they would end up, just continuing to spin in the system. So of course we have kids that don't participate.
Thank you very much for that response. And then, so just to clarify, this bill would kick in only when the court has ordered that the juvenile have interaction with law enforcement, and once their parole or probation is over, they no longer would have to participate. Is that correct?
Bridget Duffy for the record. That is a correct statement, what you had said, but that's not what I believe the bill does. What the bill does is it within the Juvenile Justice Oversight Commission under NRS 62B, there would be forming a committee, a subcommittee, that would work on assessing the services we have in the state, finding where we have gaps in services, making recommendation to how to improve the services that we have so that when a child is in court for committing a delinquent act and the judge is ordering that child into anger management or a coping skill class, that we're sending them to a class that will actually address the issue. So the Juvenile Justice Oversight Commission will make recommendations to ensure that the courts have the right services in place for our children. This bill doesn't require the courts to do anything. It's the outside stakeholders that would be creating these lists and strengthening our services with evidence-based practices that the courts could use.
Senator Grazer?
Thank you. Thank you for your response. I'm still trying to understand. From my reading, it appears that it's even after the parole and probation of a child has ended that you could still contact them and ask them about what their thoughts are about wraparound services or whatever. And some people might see that as like being harassed, like they did their time, they don't want any more contact. Is that what the bill is trying to do? Contact people after their parole and probation has ended?
Thank you. I see Senator Krasner, Bridget Duffy for the record. I understand what you're saying. In subsection 1, it says that the commission shall solicit input from persons, organizations, and entities who have knowledge and experience in matters relating to services for children who are or were in the juvenile justice system, including without limitation, children who are on probation. I believe that's the section you're talking about, and that would relate to the service providers, persons or organizations who have experience in working with children, whether they were actively on probation or perhaps finished with probation, but now they're doing a program for culinary. And they say, oh, I've worked with kids who've come out of Spring Mountain Youth Camp, successfully completed probation, and now I want to offer some input to this commission in order to talk about how my program, evidence-based, helped this child rehabilitate. Nothing in this bill, in my opinion, would, one, require children who are off parole or probation to participate in anything, although we do have 2 slots on the Juvenile Justice Commission, at least 2, if not more, for kids that can voluntarily have input if they want to help make the system better that they went through. But nothing in this bill would have us reaching out to anybody to get input after they are done with parole or probation. It would only be the service providers.
Thank you.
No, please, Senator Orenshaw, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Assemblymember Cole, for bringing the bill, and thank you to Ms. Duffy. And I've worked with Ms. Duffy for many years, and I've personally seen her intervene, trying to help children, trying to get them connected with services, to try to help them, not end up back in delinquency court, or even worse, in the adult system after they turn 18. So definitely take my hat off to you for all your work and how much you care about the kids that appear in delinquency court, and for your service on the Juvenile Justice Commission. I guess my question has to do with the new language here at section 9. And I think either for some member Cole or Ms. Duffy, at line 21, it's subparagraph 2 and then sub 3, trying to connect kids with mentorship or other necessary services relating to the needs of children who were in the juvenile justice system and their families. And I'm just wondering, this week was the anniversary of the passing of our friend, Assembly Member Tyrone Thompson. Mentorship was something he cared so much about. But it seems like sometimes there's a real struggle finding mentorship programs for youth that are in the delinquency system to connect with mentors. And so often, single parent homes, if the kids we see in delinquency court are lucky enough to have that parent there, and those are the lucky kids. So I just wonder if maybe, Ms. Duffy, if you could talk about maybe where we're at in terms of mentorship programs and wraparound services, and where hopefully with JJOC and with this bill we'll get to.
Bridget Duffy for the record. I appreciate that question, Senator Orenshaw. I agree We are at a loss when it comes to mentoring programs. There are a long wait list for the ones that we have and the ones that are good. In Clark County, I don't know Washoe County's, what they're dealing with mentoring programs, or the rurals. I'm sure the rurals have very limited ones. But this bill really is a way to kind of gathering all of that information using what we know. For example, I know, because I serve on it, Assemblymember Thompson's mentoring commission. I was appointed to that commission, and I still serve on that commission. And one of the things we do is we give out stipends to mentoring programs to help work with kids. And so we talk about, we gather lists of the mentoring programs that are available across the state. It's not just a Clark County program. But in my mind, as a member, now I could give input. As a member of the JJOC or as a public member, I could give input or invite the mentoring commission to come and give input. These are all of the mentor programs that they have collected across the state that we know are there. And then this group created by this statute under the JJOC would make sure that the programs are evidence-based, that they're worthwhile for our children that are in the juvenile justice or have been in the juvenile justice system to participate in. And so I feel like that's kind of the whole purpose of this is let's get the information, let's get it out there. We do have under 62B 635, currently the Evidence-Based Resource Center. We call it the Nevada Center for Juvenile Justice Innovation. There are a lot of programs listed. I reached out to them recently as part of my strategic planning work to see if we have them. Actually, it talks about a whole bunch of evidence-based services like aggression replacement therapy. And the truth is they're the programs we need, but we don't necessarily have them. So the part of this subcommittee created by this bill would be, let's figure out how we do that. How do we do it? If you recall, for competency, recently, we didn't really have any providers. And so my office and the 8th JD worked together to bring experts from across the country to say, if you attend this training, you will be eligible to get a contract to do competency evaluations for our youth, because we didn't have them. And then Washoe followed suit and brought the same training in to help build up providers. I see that as something we can make recommendations for, to bring in evidence-based programs and bring in the experts to train people that want to work with our kids, but make sure they're giving the right services.
Thank you very much for all your hard work, Ms. Duffy, in this area, trying to help kids and carrying on Tyrone Thompson's legacy and mentorship. And Assemblymember Cole, thanks for bringing the bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair.
Absolutely. And Senator, if I could just add, Lisa Cole for the record, my experience in my day job, I work very closely with a lot of large development companies and with jurisdictional bodies, mostly in the South, but some in the North as well. And so my plan would actually be to assist in finding those mentor opportunities so that we have more and it's more robust. So I look forward to that work. Thank you.
That's really wonderful. One thing I've found with a lot of kids I represent is sometimes the allegation of the delinquent act can seem really scary to someone who might consider mentoring them or working with them or even letting them do community service, and that's not really the child, that label that's on the delinquent act. So I appreciate that. Thank you both for your work on this bill.
Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you again for the presentation. I'd like to invite both of you to sit in the gallery, and we'll invite those wishing to join us in support of Assembly Bill 384. If you could please come forward. Carson City or Las Vegas? We have none in Las Vegas, but we do have folk here in Carson City. Good afternoon, welcome.
Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Harrison Epstein, Harrison Epstein. I'm a legal extern with the Clark County Public Defender's Office. Children are our future. Children also make mistakes. We as a society need to ensure that children are given every opportunity to succeed. We appreciate and support the work of all of the experts on the Juvenile Justice Commission, of course. Soliciting input from the wider community will bring more ideas to the table. Listening to additional stakeholders who can provide data, suggest evidence-based solutions, and offer mentorship for justice-impacted youth will only help the system work as intended. The more ideas there are, the more conversations are had, the better a system for juveniles that we can create. We support this effort to strengthen Nevada's work in creating a true rehabilitative system for children. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to come forward in support? Seeing none, we'll go to the phone lines. Support testimony for Assembly Bill 384.
Thank you, Vice Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 384, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 384, either in Las Vegas or Carson City. Seeing none, we'll go back to the phone lines. Opposition to Assembly Bill 384.
Thank you. If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 384, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. And we'll stay on the phone line. Anybody wishing to testify in the neutral position on Assembly Bill 384?
To testify in the neutral position for AB 384, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to testify in the neutral position at this time.
And lastly, we'll go to Carson City or Las Vegas, neutral testimony for Assembly Bill 384. Seeing none coming forward, Assembly Member, any closing remarks you may have?
Thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to hear this bill. I appreciate it. And I think when you have a district attorney presenting with the co-sponsor and having public defenders come up in support, you've done a good job. So thank you very much. I appreciate your support. Take care. And
we have to acknowledge that you were rocking both the donkey and elephant lapel pins as well. We see the bipartisan spirit, so thank you, Assembly Member. Appreciate you. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Assembly Bill 384, and we will recess to allow our Majority Leader to make her way in so that we may open the hearing on Senate Bill 459. We are in recess. The Senate Committee on Judiciary will come back to order. And at this time, we'll open up the hearing on Senate Bill 459. Majority Leader, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nicole Canizaro, and I proudly represent Nevada's 6th Senate District in the northwest portion of the Las Vegas Valley and serve as your Senate Majority Leader. I am very excited today to be bringing to you Senate Bill 459, which revises provisions relating to gaming salons. With your permission, Mr. Vice Chair, what I would like to do is walk through a little bit of background on the bill and then turn the presentation over to Mr. Vasiliadis, who can provide some additional context before we take questions from the committee. By way of background information, this particular statute was originally created in 2001 and provided that gaming salons are private, enclosed gaming facilities within a resort hotel that require non-restricted licenses. They are accessible to patrons based on financial criteria set by the license holder and approved by the Nevada Gaming Control Board. The idea for Senate Bill 459 came from a control board workshop last December that explored ways to expand the customer base and make use of the salons accessible to the public when not being used by what we would refer to as high rollers. Senate Bill 459 provides common sense updates to state law that will allow licensees to provide guests with more customized experiences while also helping to attract valuable players that may be choosing to play in other states. The bill modernizes the provisions of Chapter 463 of NRS relating to gaming salons to allow for that additional and greater flexibility for gaming properties to adapt to the current trends and preferences of individuals who participate in salon gaming. The bill does two things. First, it lifts the mandate that gaming salons include table games, giving casino operators greater flexibility in how those spaces are used and configured. And then two, it removes a $500 minimum wager requirement on slot machines inside salons, allowing casinos greater flexibility to set their own minimum wager with approval from the Gaming Control Board. Members of the committee, you will note that there was a proposed amendment also on this bill. It should be available to the committee members and also available on Nellis. The amendment does one very simple thing, which changes the effective date to allowing this bill to be effective upon passage and approval. With that, Mr. Vice Chair, what I would like to do is turn over the presentation to Mr. Vasiliadis, and then we would be happy to take any questions that you or members of the committee may have.
Chair, members of the committee, Nick Vasiliadis for the record on behalf of the Nevada Resort Association. Given that it's been a long judiciary hearing, I will try to keep my presentation remarks brief. However, there are a few important things I think the industry would like to get on the record. First, thank you, Madam Leader, for sponsoring this bill and working with us. As the Leader had said, the impetus for Senate Bill 459 started with the Gaming Control Board public workshop. And through that workshop, there were several items that were listed that could help make the destination a little bit more attractive from a gaming specific standpoint. Several of those changes are things that can be done and accomplished through further workshops and through regulations changed at the gaming control level. The industry will continue to work with both the board and the Gaming Commission on those specific items. However, as it pertains to this specifically, it became obvious after that December workshop that these changes that we're asking for today in Senate Bill 459 would require legislation, and that's when we reached out to the Majority Leader to help us with this bill. There are a couple important stringent requirements around gaming salons that we would like to have on the record that are not going away with this bill. Firstly, any casino that wants to open and operate a gaming salon must obtain a separate non-restricted gaming license in order to have a gaming salon, irrespective of the fact whether that casino may already have a license in place to operate a casino, sportsbook, pool, or racebook or other licensees. They must file an additional application, pay all filings, still go through the investigative process before the Control Board and the Gaming Commission and public hearings. None of that is disappearing. Once the gaming license has been issued, the casino must work with the Control Board through the regulatory requirements and standards to operate a gaming salon, including having the salon patron meet financial criteria for the gaming salon, provide clear diagrams of the interior of the salon or salons, adopt administrative and accounting procedures required by regulations for the operation of gaming salons, provide robust surveillance and security systems for the gaming salons, establish a log that contains the name of each gaming salon patron, as well as the times each gaming salon patron enters and leaves the gaming salon, and those logs have to be maintained as prescribed by the regulations. Ensure that at all times the gaming salon is open to a patron for play. One or more gaming employee must be physically present in the gaming salon in addition to any dealer or dealers that are present to operate table games. The gaming employee must be actively monitoring and supervising the operation while it is open and while patrons are there. And any change to the size or location of any approved gaming salon or alteration of the salon's physical characteristics, and any changes to the number, the type of game, the configuration, all of that still has to be approved by the Gaming Control Board and the requirements established by the Gaming Control Board before implementing any such changes. As noted earlier, some of the changes we believe should be made in statute. The current law requires there must be a table game in the gaming salon, and a licensee may have slot machines. The industry believes that times have changed, and in order to stay competitive and attract these high-end customers, the casinos should have more flexibility in what is offered in the gaming salon based on what the customers are actually requesting. Poker is one of these instances. We believe that gaming salons should be able to offer poker and other card games that are not considered table games per current regulation or current NRS. We understand there are poker games held in people's homes, California, New York, that are high-stake games that we believe the industry is missing out on, and we would like to be able to offer these in Las Vegas, in Reno, where a non-restricted licensee is, so that we can attract them and keep them here in Nevada. And on just a quick note on poker, although poker might not bring in as much revenue as certain table games do, it's the ancillary spending of these players that really drive economic activity in casinos around these poker tables. We also believe that a licensee should be able to offer just slot machines in the gaming salon if that's what the patron or patrons want. And this ties directly into that $500 minimum. We believe that $500 minimum is a bit outdated. At the time that this was set into place, most of our high rollers, celebrities, athletes, stars, very recognizable people, when they would come to Vegas, they'd often come to Vegas by themselves, maybe with a family member or two, or maybe with a friend, another celebrity, a fellow athlete, what have you. What we're now seeing is more of that entourage effect. And so they're bringing a lot of their friends, a lot of their family members. And that $500 minimum could be a disincentive to having those folks come into the salons and spend that money. And really, when they do come in, even though that maybe that $500 minimum was setting a certain threshold, we believe with the kind of the progressive playouts, the multiple bets that you can make on a slot machine at a single moment, that will actually end up balancing and accruing to a greater total number than what these current minimums have in place. And another important factor that we all know and readily recognize, especially in this body, is the changing landscape of privacy and security. When these salons were first established, it was prior to being able to hold a cell phone, take a picture, post it on social media, and blast out any of our VIPs who are on a casino floor at any given moment. And most of these folks would prefer the privacy of being able to gamble either by themselves or with their friends, with their family, with their colleagues in a safe and secure manner. So in summation, as the majority leader pointed out, SB 59 does two things, two very specific things. One, it clarifies the regulations of the commission must provide that games offered may include table games and any other gambling games or combination thereof as requested by a patron. Second, it does remove that $500 minimum. However, any minimum that the licensee requests to the board must be approved by that oversight body, the Gaming Control Board. With that, Madam Chair, that concludes the presentation portion of this. We would love to answer any questions, and thank you for allowing me to present today.
Thank you so much. Sorry I was late, but I heard that the presentation was excellent. So I will open it up now for any questions. I think I saw Senator Ellison. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. I got a couple questions. Is this strictly for like large casinos? Is that what we're looking at? Or are you talking any salon?
I would actually like to phone a friend. Mr. Alonso, would you mind coming down and answering that specific question, please?
Good afternoon, Chair Scheibel, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Michael Alonso. I'm here on behalf of Caesars Entertainment in support of this bill. Any casino, any non-restricted casino in the state can have a gaming salon. It is a process, and you have to get an additional non-restricted gaming license for the gaming salon. Currently, there are only gaming salons on the Strip. And part of that is what we're trying to address in this bill because of the minimum criteria, financial criteria that's required, and the board, Gaming Control Board, is looking at that now, and then removing the $500 minimum. That might allow other casinos in northern Nevada and neighborhood casinos in southern Nevada or across the state to be able to utilize the gaming salons.
Okay, and then the other question you might be able to answer. There for a while, gaming would not allow anything outside of a casino or a licensed slot machine area unless they sold food, like, you know, the little stores and stuff like this. So they kind of limited to what they could do on these little 3, 4, 5 slot machine areas. They finally started shutting them down, saying, no, if you're not selling food, you don't have 1,000 square foot, you don't have this. No. So you're talking pretty good size, or is that still not, is that still in effect, or I don't know.
Chair Scheibel, for the record, Michael Alonso to Senator Ellison. I think you're referring to restricted locations that are 15 machines or less in bars, taverns, saloons, drugstores, grocery stores. This would not affect that at all. You have to have a non-restricted gaming license in order to be able to even apply for a private gaming salon license. So it wouldn't affect those smaller locations at all.
Well, it wasn't the issue of, you know, I knew that it'd be two different things. The problem was I had a gentleman come to me and say, look, I've got this building, it's a local business, and I want to put a couple slot machines in there. And they said, no, not unless you're selling food. And so I called gaming, and they told me, said, yeah, it's restricted little stores, but they're limited to what they could do. They don't sell food, so you've answered my questions anyway. If it's a restricted license period, then and $500 limit.
Again, Madam Chair, for the record, Michael Alonso, we're trying to reduce the minimum $500 bet inside of a private gaming salon to, if this bill were to pass, then the licensee could determine what that amount of minimum bet should be, if any, and it would have to be approved by the Gaming Control Board. And what we're kind of hoping is that would be based on geography. So in the Strip, it might be a higher minimum than it would be in northern Nevada or somewhere else in the state. It would be more up to the kind of the business opportunity that the licensee would have.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this bill? Not seeing any, we appreciate you being here to present and answer questions. We will now take testimony in support of SB 459 here in person in Carson City. If there is anybody in Las Vegas wishing to give support testimony in person, please also make your way to the front of the room there. And we'll start in Carson City when you're ready. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Scheibel. Members of the committee, my name is Virginia Valentine, V-A-L-E-N-T-I-N-E, and I am the president of the Nevada Resort Association. And I'm here on behalf of the 73 resorts that we represent at the Resort Association in support of SB 459. And this measure, as you've heard, is aimed at modernizing the state's gaming regulations as they pertain to gaming salons. I'd like to thank the Senate Majority Leader for taking up this issue. This bill will provide, as you've heard, greater flexibility in terms of gambling games, any combination thereof, that they may be conducted in a private salon, and that will allow licensees to offer a variety of gambling products that appeal to customers. The ability to offer any game, including poker, will translate to incremental taxable gaming revenues generating the activity, as well as what was mentioned by, I believe, Mr. Vasiliadis about also food and beverage, entertainment, hotel nights, all of the things that go with those people who want to have gambling experiences in private salons. Giving operators discretion with the approval of the board to establish minimum wagers for slot machines expands the opportunity to broader customer segment and wider class of licensed gaming establishments. And to the question that was asked, We do have members in Northern Nevada that have made a very good point, I think, of what's considered a high roller on the Strip is necessarily a high roller in Northern Nevada, and they would like to avail themselves of the opportunity to operate salons when it makes sense to them also. Ultimately, gaming salons will need to be reviewed and approved by the gaming regulators. SB 459 does not change that. Nevada is the gold standard for gaming regulation, and the agility and ability of our gaming industry to adapt to the evolution and changes in customer demographics and preferences is due in a significant part to our state's public policy that has allowed gaming operators to be nimble and flexible and innovative, and I believe that SB 459 will be a continuation of that public policy. As each of you are keenly aware, in today's environment, it is imperative we do all we can to ensure that we are not losing gaming guests and that we are attracting new guests. Respectfully, we ask for your support, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Chelsea Capurro, CHELSEA, CAPURRO. On behalf of MGM Resorts, want to echo the comments made by the Nevada Resort Association and thank the Majority Leader for bringing this bill. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any further people here to testify in person, we will go to the phones for support testimony on SB 459.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working, but there are no callers to provide support testimony at this time.
All right, then we will go to opposition testimony. Anybody wishing to testify in opposition to SB 459 is invited forward to do so now in person in Carson City or Las Vegas, and I don't see anybody coming forward, so we will go to the phone lines for opposition on SB 459.
Thank you. The lines are open and working, but there are no callers to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Okay, we will go to neutral testimony on SB 459. Anybody wishing to testify in neutral is invited forward to do so now. I don't see anybody coming forward in person in either Las Vegas or Carson City, so we'll go to the phones for neutral testimony on SB 459.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working, but there are no callers to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Okay, then that brings us to the conclusion of testimony on the bill. If the presenters have any closing remarks, now would be the time, but they don't. So I will close the hearing on SB 459. I think that's the last bill on our agenda for today. Okay, I didn't miss anybody. And with that, we will move into the last item on our agenda, which is public comment. Anybody wishing to give public comment is invited forward to do so now. I don't see anybody coming forward in person, so we'll go to the phones for public comment.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers to provide public comment at this time.
All right, that being the case, we are ready to conclude our meeting. We will be back to our usual time, I think, at 1 p.m. on Monday. And until then, we are adjourned.